we have here an outline of the book of Proverbs, so to give us a general idea of how the book of Proverbs is laid out. And we could get the general idea that Proverbs is just loaded from first to last with one proverb after another proverb after another proverb after another proverb, and it's not. The first 9 chapters are a discourse on wisdom, and it begins with that of a father, Solomon, speaking to his son, who presumably is going to be a future king, but it doesn't matter if he's going to be a future king or not. Of course, that would be Rehoboam if it was. It's just from father to son, and it's this discussion or discourse on wisdom, and then in that we see things such as the value of wisdom. Then when we get to chapter 10, that's when we get into a collection of proverbs, and I refer to these as independent proverbs because they're not necessarily grouped together by subject. You will find proverbs, let's say, on the lazy man or the sluggard, kind of scattered throughout. Proverbs concerning adultery, scattered throughout. Proverbs concerning the wise, once again, not necessarily all grouped together, but in various places. And with the collection of Proverbs, we see where at the beginning of that, in chapter 10, verse 1, it is the, let me just read that, the Proverbs of Solomon. And so we see that we are entering into a new section. We go to chapter 22 and verse 17, incline your ear and hear the words of the wise. And it would seem as though we've entered into another section in this. And we go from there to chapter 24 and verse 23. These things also belong to the wise. Another section. And then chapter 25, verse 1. These also are proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, copied. So prior to this, I think we could understand that this section was copied down by Hezekiah's men, which is considerably later than Solomon. That Solomon had said these things, it had been recorded by someone, and perhaps even large sections of the book of Proverbs had been done. Now this section is going to be filled in by the men of Hezekiah, though they're not going to be doing the rest of the book. They're only doing a section. And that takes us to chapter 29, to the end of 29. Then to chapter 30. These are the words of Agur, the son of Ajaka, his utterance. This man declared to Ithiel and Ukal. Okay, so these would be the words of Agur. Then we come to the next chapter, chapter 31, and the words of King Lemuel, all right, the utterance which his mother taught him. So she's the source of chapter 31. He's writing it down. He's putting it down. And who is King Lemuel? We don't know. Some would guess, and it's not a bad guess, that this is Solomon and he's just given himself another name. Why? I don't know. But we don't know. There is no King Lemuel by that name in Israel. And exactly who this is, we don't really know, no more than we know who Agur is. But in the first 9 verses of Proverbs 9, it concerns itself preparing to be a king. It's his mother talking to Lemuel, and it's in preparation of making a king. And it goes into things such as immoral behavior and drunkenness, and also matters of justice. And then, beginning in verse 10, we have that of the virtuous wife. And this section from 10 to verse 31 is an acrostic. It's a Hebrew alphabet acrostic, very much like Psalm 19 is. And sometimes we can forget that there are other acrostics in poetry other than Psalm 119. Psalm 119 is a very, very long one, but it's not the only one. It's not the only one in the book of Psalms, as a matter of fact. So let's go back to chapter 1, and we are at this prologue. And we will just begin in all this in verse 1 and just read this prologue. We left off at finishing verse 6, but I want us to read this again. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom. And as we stated last week, this gives the value of the book, the reason for the book at all. And it gives it to us at the beginning. Now, just as an aside, from the book of John gives us the reason for the book at the end. These things are written, okay, that you may believe. And that, I mean, there's no problem with putting it at the front or putting it at the end. It's there. But this one is directly in the front, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. That's some heavy lifting. That's saying a lot. That you're going to provide all that through Proverbs. And Proverbs are, and of course discourses on these things, Proverbs are very powerful sayings because they are principles. They're not laws. And there's not a single thing in the book of Proverbs, as far as Proverbs are concerned, that are just kept to the law of Moses, such as some sort of saying concerning the Passover, or some sort of saying concerning make your way to Jerusalem. There's nothing like that. All of these are very much universal, and they are wisdom for the ages. And concerning not only wisdom as a large subject, but justice, judgment, and equity. Those two are very large subjects, and they're going to be covered under these Proverbs. And that the principle underlying these things is enormous. And one cannot go to the absolute depths of Proverbs and say, there's nothing else to learn here. It's all kind of, I've graduated from this. I don't need this anymore. I can move on to the next thing. Proverbs always has something, and that's what Solomon is actually going to say. To give prudence to the simple, all right, someone that has very little, someone who's simple, as we made mention last week, is someone easily misled, someone who's naive, who simply can be distracted or given bad information. They simply don't know it's bad information. The simple, to give the young man knowledge and discretion. All right, so someone who is young, someone who is simple, and someone can be simple and not young, but someone who's simple, someone who has no discretion or just lacks knowledge and discretion, they can learn from this. But so too, verse 5, a wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. It doesn't end. It continues to teach. And one can read through the book of Proverbs and not really gain a whole lot. Why? Because you're not dwelling on it. You're not looking at it. You're not digesting it. You're not considering it. You're not consuming it to really meditate on it. And what does it mean? Verse 6, to understand a proverb and an enigma, it's a mystery, that is, or a dark saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. What does that even mean? What does that mean? Well, this is to help in all this. Now, verse 7. Here is a profound, very fundamental principle. And it is true regardless of who you are. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord. That means someone who believes there is God. There is a God. Someone who believes. Someone who also believes, having the fear of the Lord. What is that? That is a respect for Him and an understanding that there's justice that's going to occur. He is going to judge everyone. And with that being in mind, I better mind myself. I better take care of myself and do what is right and learn from Him. I've got to. The fear of the Lord, there are certain things that having a fear and respect for it, I will never do. If there are certain things around the house that if it requires too much knowledge, and I need an electrician to do it. If it's something simple, I can do it. But if I need an electrician to do it, I'd rather pay the money than die. I'd rather would. And while, playing around with plumbing probably won't kill me, but it could cost me a whole lot more. And I can do some things, but other things I got to leave it to a plumber. When it comes to natural gas coming into the house, I don't even bother with that. Okay, next thing I see is a house exploding. Okay, and me on the inside are running away. And all right, that's no good. That's having what I consider to be a healthy fear. If I had more knowledge in those things, then I would know how to deal with it better. But I have what I consider to be a healthy respect. Now, let's put that now toward God. All right, in Romans chapter 1, we see where there is a truth that is suppressed. A truth that you have no excuse to say you did not know that truth. You have no excuse. We'll just begin in verse 18. Romans 1, verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. What truth is being suppressed? Well, it's going to tell us. The biggest truth there is. And that biggest truth happens to be God is. That's the biggest truth. If you suppress that truth, the rest of truth is meaningless. You suppress that truth, you can suppress anything. If you suppress that truth, you are going right into foolishness, exactly as Romans is going to say and the book of Proverbs is going to say. All right, now, verse 19. Because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. That means your very being proves God exists. You don't have to go and look at planets and look at, in the microscope, at microscopic organisms. You don't have to look at subatomic particles. You don't have to go across the world and look at exotic animals and how they, like the panda's thumb. You don't have to do that. It starts with you and your existence. And that is one fact you don't need experts to tell you. You don't need scientists. You don't need PhDs. You don't need counselors. You don't need anybody. You can know you exist. You can know that. You don't need anybody else to tell you. You exist. Okay, so God has shown it to them. It means He's shown it to us. Verse 20, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. There is no excuse. As Dawkins was asked, if there is a God, what would you say to him? And he ever so cleverly said, but this is not what he's going to say. When he comes face to face with God, this is not what he's going to say. He's not going to be able to say it. But he said, sir, why did you hide yourself so well? God hasn't hidden himself. He's not hidden himself. He can't hide. Now his being, yeah, I've never seen God. But there's too many things pointing to a creator. We can know he's got to exist. We can know that and can know his eternal being. We can know his goodness. We can know the wisdom that he has and the cleverness and the creativity, the over-the-top creativity that can't be mimicked. Well, okay, we do mimic it, but cannot be matched by mankind. We do mimic it. Yeah, we do. Matter of fact, and this is getting off subject, robots, and robots are getting pretty sophisticated. Robots are actually mimic what's already found in nature. That's what they mimic. You want a robot to go fast, you look at animals that can go very fast, and you mimic their legs. That's what you do. If you want something, you want something tiny that can fly, well, you look at insects that are tiny and can fly. That's what you do. All right? And we would say that the robot was created, but that the ostrich that can run extremely fast, or the cheetah that can run extremely fast, that somehow we're mimicking them. The robot is created, but these things are by accident. They can't be. That is being foolish. Now, we just continue on. Verse 21, because although they knew God, they knew him. They did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. It was foolish to suppress that truth. Or really, it's foolish to suppress any truth. But you leave that one alone. Completely alone. And like I say, it's foolishness to suppress any truth, though there can be truth that's painful. But this one, you can't top this one. Now here we come to the next one. Professing to be wise, they became fools. And understand that Paul, the Holy Spirit through Paul, is writing concerning the history of the Gentile world in Romans chapter 1. And the Gentile world had some very intelligent people there. Very intelligent. And Romans 1 doesn't say they weren't intelligent. Matter of fact, it's saying the opposite. They were intelligent. They did know, but they were foolish. Let's go ahead and define wisdom. And when we define wisdom, we can define foolishness. Wisdom is knowing something to be true and acting as though it's not. All right? When you have certain knowledge that you know, all right, I know that fire is hot and it burns things. And it'll easily burn me. All right? And I go ahead and just plunge my hand into a campfire, into the coals. Now, that would be foolish because I know better, but I did it anyway. All right, that is the idea of, well, wisdom and foolishness, of you know something and then you are going to abide by it. You know something to be the truth, you're going to abide by that truth. Now, someone who's ignorant is ignorant. Someone who doesn't know the way certain things happen to be, well, you know, as they say, what you don't know can hurt you. And when I was a kid, I was pretty small. I heard that saying, "What you don't know can hurt you," and I thought they said, "What you don't know could not hurt you." And I thought, "Okay, cool. I don't need to learn anything else." and that's just the mind of a child. That's just the mind of a child. But what you don't know can definitely hurt you. You don't know the bridge is out? You might need to know that. You don't know that there is a storm coming in, or a tsunami, or that the volcano's erupting, or you might want to know that. Those are things that it'd be good if you did know. Now, foolishness is having been told, knowing the truth now, and then acting as though it doesn't matter. That's foolishness. And someone who is wise is someone who takes the advice, takes the truth, and now behaves accordingly. Because every action has a reaction. Every action has a result. It has a result. And that includes moral behavior. Every action has a result. And that is just the way reality is. And God has created this entire bit of reality that we're in. He has created all of this, and He gets to define what is right and what is wrong. He gets to define it. Now, we continue on in verse 7. Because in verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So there is the beginning of it. If you don't fear God, you will not gain His wisdom, because you'll see it as nonsense. And any people, any person, any people, and as a society at large that has no fear, no respect of God, will not care a thing about wisdom and just begin to behave more brutish and more beast-like, and just with the worst sort of behavior, just this steady decline that's going to happen. And now, an individual might not go as far as others go, because that's going to be a matter of personal taste. I'll go this far, but I'm not going to go any further, and may actually hold on to that. I'm not going to go any further because I see that as being wrong. And one would have to ask the question, especially if someone's an atheist, why do you think the rest is wrong? As an atheist, why do you think any action is wrong? Why would you think that? Something inside you, and it's called the soul with the conscience, something inside you won't let you go any further. Why? Because you're created that way. Now, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Now here in this next one, this is the contrast to that, are those that will hate this book. From beginning to end, from the point at which this is put into print to the end day, here are the ones that will hate this book. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. Fools despise it. They don't want it. They don't want it. And it comes down to that. It's a matter of will. It's not that they don't understand it per se. No, granted, there'll be some things that you don't understand because you're not matured enough yet. But with the fear of the Lord, you would know, these are the things I've got to do. Whether I understand it or not at this moment, this is what I better be doing. Because there is a consequence involved in all this. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Let's go to just briefly to Psalm 111. Ooh, I'm going the wrong way. Psalm 111. And verse 10. And this goes into the beginning of verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all those who do His commandments. His praise endures forever. So here is really just a reiteration, though Psalm 111 may very well have been written before the book of Proverbs. But the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Isaiah 33 and verse 6, we have this being stated: wisdom and knowledge and the stability of your times and the strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is His treasure. Okay? Here, wisdom, knowledge, stability, strength of salvation. It's all there in the fear of the Lord. Now, coming back to Proverbs 1 verse 7. But the fool despises wisdom and instruction. Wisdom can give them the things they need, but they don't want that. Wisdom can supply them with safety in the future. They don't want safety. They don't want safety. Okay, now let's just ask this question. Let's just say you are on a sailboat, all right, and you've got to cross a very large ocean. I guess oceans by definition are large. You've got to go across an ocean. All right. Are you going to act foolishly with knowledge that you have been given to do this task? Are you going to behave foolishly and just toss that all away? Concerning weather, concerning navigation, concerning seeing problems in the ship, that it doesn't matter what you have been taught, you're just going to toss it away because you want more excitement? What would be the reason? What would be the reason for that? Well, no, I think for the sake of preserving your own life, you would take everything that you had learned so that you could see what the weather looks like it's about to bring and prepare for that. And if it's going to bring a storm, you have to get prepared for that. If there happens to be something wrong with your ship, well, you're going to have to correct it. You're going to have to do something about it. Otherwise, you're just going to languish there and die in the ocean. Why not take the wisdom God has given us to get us through this life? Why not do that? And for those that for the fool would see it as being unexciting, as being dull. But the consequences that come from being a fool, while I would say they're probably not dull, are certainly not worth it. They're not worth it. Okay? If hell is anything, it's not dull. All right, if you want excitement, you can find it in hell. Hell would be, if you want that, that's going to be quite a level. If you want to think of it that way, it's not going to be dull. It's a lake of fire. All right, and you'll have an eternity to admire where your foolishness got you. You'll have an eternity. And also, prior to that, there will be consequences, as wisdom is going to say. Wisdom is going to call out, and we'll get there eventually. Wisdom is going to call out, you refuse. Wisdom's going to laugh at your calamity of, this was so predictable. This was so predictable. And of course, living in this life, you mature long enough, you see, by way of example, maybe you've lived it personally, maybe you've seen it in friends or relatives, that certain actions will bring about certain results. They're going to do it. And you see someone younger than yourselves going down that same path. You've seen others time and time and time and time again. You think, haven't we matured? Haven't we come away from this? Haven't we learned enough? Well, here's this new person, this new generation. They haven't learned. And they're going down that same path, and you can predict it. Or this is what's going to happen to this person. You can predict it. Unless they stop this is what's going to happen. It's almost like you're a fortune teller, but you're not. You just know what the ramifications, what the consequences are going to be. It's going to be the same consequence. It's going to be the same consequence. Now, they can get out of it. Obviously, they can. But the fool is not going to want that wisdom. But a fool can change. A fool can change. Now, verse 8, we begin here with this discussion with the son. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother. Okay, so this is directed from father to son, but here we are taking it in. So it's the same thing for us. Hear this instruction. Consider this instruction from your father, your law from your mother. Listen to these things because we know a few things. We've lived we've lived a life. And we have seen some things that you have not witnessed. It's like years ago, I was teaching a teenage class, and I forgot the subject that was being covered. And one of the girls raised her hand. She said, "Do you see any of us being part of that? ? Do you really think any of us?" And it was whatever it was a common problem that's just seen way too many times. Do you think any of us would be involved in something like that? And of course, the way they were at that point, they're innocent to a degree. They're innocent. They're naive. They have faced nothing or extremely little. You don't know. You haven't been put into life just yet. You haven't been set out on your own, and now it's on your own strength. You've been under your parents. You've been under teaching. You've been restrained because you need to be restrained, for your own protection. But there's coming a time you're going to be an adult. You're going to make your own decisions. And any one of you or all of you could be part of this. You just don't know yet. You don't know yet. You haven't been out in the world just yet and faced these things because the temptations will arise. When you were a child, yes, there were certain temptations that you had. I want that candy. I want that cookie. I'm going to steal it. All right, that's a common thing as a child. But there are other temptations that you don't have. You don't have those temptations at all because you're a child. It hasn't leaped on you just yet. But in time, those temptations will have a meaning. Now, hear the instruction of your father, do not forsake the law of your mother. Verse 9, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. That instruction, that law, they are going to make you into a noble person. You don't have to have an ornament on your head or jewelry and all that to be what everyone sees as a noble, having some nobility about you. And I don't mean being in the aristocracy. I mean behaving like a noble person, behaving like someone who has more wisdom and is more governed and has more sense about them than just the one who goes about behaving as a fool, whether it's running their mouth or whether it's going into every kind of nonsense that comes around. This person appears like they have self-control. That is an ornament on your head. That is like having beautiful jewelry that you are wearing. And it's clearly seen by those around. Verse 10. Now, we come to this. This is what I call the first enticement. I call it this because this is the first one he's covering in the book of Proverbs. Not that it's the first and foremost of anything, but it's the first one that he is covering. And all that he has to say to his son will keep him away from trouble. And this first one is big. And the next one will also be monumental. But my son, if sinners entice you, here's the first enticement, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait to shed blood. Let us lurk secretly for the innocent without cause. All right? This is a group that is committed to murder and theft. That's what this is. We would call this a gang or a mob or also organized crime. Organized crime is where you have a group that gets together and they begin to organize for the sake of committing crime. That's what they do. Doing it by yourself, you're only going to go so far. But you join up with all of us, and all together we are far more powerful than just one. So we will be the powerful against the weak. We can't fail. Let us join together. Let us lurk for the innocent without cause. Let us lie in wait to shed blood. What do you think this is? This is a group of murderers, and then look at what is stated. Verse 12, let us swallow them alive like Sheol, that's like the grave, and also that's the realm of the dead, and whole like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all kinds of precious possessions. We shall fill our houses with spoil. That's what we're going to do. All right? We're going to... What would be the point of killing? Is it killing just for the sake of killing? Well, someone would perhaps like a benefit out of that other than just killing people. Yeah, and so we're going to get their possessions. We're going to steal everything they have. We're going to fill our houses with wealth. That's how we're going to get wealthy. And there's nobody that can stop us. Aside from being powerful, we're going to do this secretly. And we're going to lie in wait to do these things. And verse 14 here continues this. Make a commitment. Cast in your lot among us. Let us have one purse. Meaning, we're all in this together. We share equally. That's what we're going to do. Or like with the pirates, it was by way of percentage. The captain got a greater percent, and then as you go down, it's lesser and lesser percent, and everyone would agree with that. But this doesn't have to do with just piracy. This is street gangs. This would be mafia. This would be everything in between. Everything in between. And here is this first enticement. And now, verse 15, here is this, the father telling him, my son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your foot from their path. Stay away from them. Don't cast your lot in with them. Don't be part of that. And I remember that there were times when my dad would see a group of boys and he would tell me, stay away from them. Not that they had any interest in me. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But he would say, stay away from them. Don't, whatever they're doing, you don't want to be part of that. Because things are going to go badly here very soon. Verse 16. And now we see there's something that you don't know about them. There's something you don't know about them. Because there's something that they may not even know it themselves. For their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, but they lie in wait for their own blood. They lurk secretly for their own lives. They are risking these things. They get a rush out of it, I suppose. They love having the wealth. They love having the power, but there's something deep underneath underneath all that they may not even realize is they lurk secretly for their own lives. That's something you couldn't know. You couldn't know. They know. It's like with modern day gangs. This is going to end in one of three ways. You quit, which if you quit, you might get killed doing that. All right? You end up in the hospital now and not able to do what you've been doing. All right? Because you're now on a respirator for the rest of your life, or you're now a paraplegic or a quadriplegic or whatever happened to you. So it's the hospital. And the third one is the grave. All right? There's no good outcome in this. There's no good final place. There is no point at which one actually gets to say, okay, I've had enough. Now I'm out. All right? Not by the rules of the gang, not by their rules. You're never out. You're always in. Now, if you are in that situation knowing that, and truly I would not want to live my life looking over my shoulder thinking that somebody around the next corner, around the next door is going to shoot me. Someone from a rival gang, or even the law itself. I don't want to live like that. That's stressful living. That's where you become more and more paranoid, and rightfully so. Okay? But they lurk secretly for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone who is greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owner. So here is the end result. The end result in all this. Why shouldn't you be doing this? Because it comes down to this. It takes away the life of its owner. Then there's judgment. Aside from the fact of doing all this wickedness, the final chapter in this life is the grave, and it's over, and it would be an early life, and since I'm thinking on pirates, pirate captains, their career as a captain, as a pirate is a different matter. But as a captain, a pirate captain, very few of them were long careers. Very few. Now, I can't speak of modern days because I don't know that. I'm talking about historical ones such as Blackbeard and there were Bellamy and there were others. Anyway, their career as a captain, 3 years was the longest, I think. One was a matter of about 18 months where he became feared up and down the East Coast, and that was the end for him. After it was less than 2 years, I think it was about 16, 18 months, something like that, and he's done. It was death, is what it was, and it had nothing to do with human justice. It was a storm that destroyed him. But okay. We will continue next week. Thank you, everybody. And as we look further into the book of Proverbs.